Yeshe Sogyal is perhaps the most famous woman of Tibet's and maybe even Buddhism's history. She was often heard proclaiming, "I, a mere woman," or "I, a lowly woman," even though she was considered to be a fully realized master and was the top disciple of Padmasambhava, whose nickname was the Buddha of Tibet. So to give you some perspective, this would kind of be like Jesus came back. He's, oh, I'm back. He did his career. He got some disciples. And then he had a woman disciple who went all the way up through the ranks. And he said, she's as much a Messiah as I am. And if that woman started all of her speeches with, "I know I'm just a little lady, but perhaps I have something of value to share with you." This is a little bit like what it was like for Yeshe Tsogyal to constantly be saying, "I know I'm just a mere woman." Some people think that this was a type of tongue-in-cheek inside joke, but we can also note that even as a joke, it was highlighting the institutional misogyny, the cultural misogyny that she faced even as a realized master, an authorized lineage bearer of the tradition. She was constantly scorned for her feminine status. This is the type of false humility required by institutions of power over and division based on gender. Institutions our society and its predecessors have lived with for many thousands of years. There's another type of humility, though, one that I would like to invoke now. I think it should come into vogue, which is, as I give this sermon, the type of humility that says, I'm a white man who's about to tell you about feminism from the perspective of an Asian spiritual tradition. Tricky, very tricky. It's not an easy job. It's a complicated job, but it's a job that needs to be done. And so those of us who are willing to step up are the ones who should do the job. So this situation of Yeshe Tsogyal was over 1,000 years ago, but the gender divide still breeds inequality in our modern world. So-called masculine values are applauded, while so-called feminine values are denigrated. You might see this in our current debates over the coronavirus. I don't know if you noticed that there's some debates out there, but some of them that I hear are a lot about freedom. What about our freedom? Don't take me as dismissing the debate on our freedom. I think debates on our freedom are very important. There's also a big debate on how are we going to win the war on the disease? How will we destroy the enemy of this virus? We shall grind him into the dust. They shall run for the hills. We will never surrender. Rarely, though, out there on the streets of the internet, which are the main streets that I interact with people on at the moment, do I hear debates about how deeply are we caring for each other? How soft can we hold ourselves during this time? Those don't seem to be the popular cultural debates. And while these values may not be essential values of the masculine or the feminine, they are the cultural values of masculinity and femininity that we've held up for many years. This is a big issue that continues to this day. Masculine so-called values are held up at the expense of so-called feminine values. It seems like 1,000 years ago, that was a problem way back then. But if we are aware at all, this is a problem that's happening way back now. Imagine instead a world where women, men, non-binary people could express their hearts in vastly diverse ways, where our ethics are expressed, as Carol Gilligan put it, in an androgyne way, neither prizing rights at the expense of care, nor vice versa. The spiritual experience of women in Buddhism can help us find powerful insights which move towards spiritual freedom and greater equality for us all. So I'd like to take you on a little journey through the history of women in Buddhism And my hope is that this will shine a light, not only for those of you who might be Buddhist women on the call today, but for all of us and the unique issues that we face in trying to grow toward a society of greater care and equality. It starts with historical patriarchal roots. I want to tell you, wouldn't it be nice that because Buddhism deals with the world of the spirit, shouldn't it be like Tara said in the opening quote? How did the quote go? There is no man, there is no woman, no self, no person, no consciousness. Labeling male or female is hollow, right? I think that would be nice. This is sort of the Christian vision of heaven. There shall be no more going into marriage, no more men and women. But it's kind of like saying, you could add on the end of that list, if we were to try to use this today, no man, no woman, etc., no problem. It would be like saying there's no problem with misogyny in the spiritual realm. And unfortunately, the reality is a bit more nuanced. First of all, Buddhism grows from patriarchal roots. We can't know for certain how the Lord Buddha himself understood gender. His quotes all come down 500 years or so later, and it's really hard to tell 500 years later what was being said as a cultural expression of the time, what was being said as an expression of a person's personal views. So we can't know exactly what the founder thought, but we can know that ancient society reserved a lower class of existence for women than for men. The Tibetan word for woman, for example, means of lower birth. Nuns in the most ancient schools of Buddhism have at least 8 more vows than monks have. And these are the first 8 vows on incorporating nuns into the Buddhist Sangha, and they all have to do with how female practitioners of Buddhism should respect male practitioners of Buddhism, regardless of seniority or respectable qualities. If a man walks in the room and he's a 14-year-old monk, and you're a nun who's been in the business for 30 years, you must stand up to revere his maleness. We're obviously not dealing with a realm of spirit where gender no longer exists. You can also see in the quote from the liberator Tara at the beginning, if you were here for the beginning, you can remember she's going along, she's gaining momentum in her Buddhist career. She's making the aspiration, I'm going to help everyone. Oh man, this is going to be great. And this monk comes along and goes, well, I mean, nice that you want to help everyone, but too bad you were born as a woman. Must kind of suck to be you. I hope you get reborn as a man one day. And this actually reflects some of the earliest Buddhist teaching. We don't know that it came from the Lord Buddha. Many scholars think it was added on later as patriarchal overlay. But we do know that it was said that you could not become a fully realized being in a woman's body. It's taught in those ancient schools that once you gain the aspiration to become enlightened, you only take rebirth as a boy from then on, because you're so holy now that you can only have rebirth with boy parts to express your holiness. Yikes. This is obvious gender essentialism. Enlightenment in the ancient schools is a gendered affair. Let us make no mistake. The good news is that later, about 500 to 1,000 years into Buddhist development, a school called the Mahayana came into vogue. And this is the school that we often hear about. People like Thich Nhat Hanh, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, famous practitioners of Buddhism, Pema Chodron, my teacher Pema Chödrön. These are followers of the Mahayana school, which emphasizes compassion. But one of the first things that it emphasized was this thing called Buddha nature. So in the Mahayana, this gender essentialism of Buddhism finally started to turn around. And this is what you see in the quote at the beginning from Tara when she says, you know what, silly monk lad, I'm going to prove you all wrong, because women need an idol. They need someone to look up to if they want to become Buddhas too, and nobody's doing that work. So I'm going to disregard all this foolishness that you're spouting, and I will become enlightened in a female body so that people know that your weird, limited sense of life is not the way things actually are. So this comes about in the philosophical school of the Mahayana. So they did this because Buddha nature, the potential for goodness in this school, is seen to be something that is shared equally, regardless of what type of being you are. If you're a man, if you're a woman, if you're a child, if you're an outcast, if you're a rich person, the Mahayana school actually did powerful work that we're still trying to do, which is learning not to other people, learning not to say, oh, those wealthy elites, they don't have the potential for goodness, or those poor people, they don't have the potential for goodness, immigrants, they don't have the potential for goodness, people who are racist against immigrants, they don't have the potential for goodness. The Mahayana flips that all on its head, and it does a very you thing, which is it posits Buddha nature, which for us secular humanist types might be said to be the inherent worth and dignity in every being. We each have the potential to live a dignified life of the heart that expresses all it means to be fully human. In a way, the Mahayana brings this inner equality that Buddhism worked towards in its early years by emphasizing that which all people share, the potential for radical transformation and kindness. Whew. A little relief from the Mahayana, thank you. It only took about 500 years to get there, but we're not sure when the patriarchy got imported in that first 500 years. So I don't know, be as optimistic as your heart needs to be today, or as pessimistic as your activist needs to be today. Find the right balance for you. Okay, a little bit of bad news. Sadly, even in the Mahayana, they kept the monastic inequality. So in recent years, if you look up feminist Buddhism online, you'll see that in recent years, a lot of the work of feminist Buddhism has been getting full ordination status for nuns in places like Thailand and Burma and Tibet. Somewhere, so the Lord Buddha actually liked having women in the Sangha, regardless of what weird rules may have crept in there. A lot of scholarship we don't have time to go into today. But somewhere along the drift of about 500 to 1,000 years, they lost the ordination lineage of women to become full members of the Buddhist community. And they had all the women in the Sangha remain novices for the duration of their tenure. It's really skillful. Like, if you wanted to believe that there was patriarchal power over motives working behind the scenes, it would be a really skillful way to do that, is just deny women full status in the community, so that no matter how long they've been there, no matter how wise they might be, they always have to give reverence to someone, not based on the content of their character, but based on their gender. There are still problems even with the high thinking of the Mahayana tradition. Okay, but there is good news. Also, around this time, developed a system that they call yoga, the tradition of the siddhas, the tradition of the masters. And what yoga did is they found a sense to bring this sameness, this Buddha nature that all of us share, and learn to express it through diversity. So I want to do a little exercise with you, if you are willing, and I want you to think in your mind what image comes up when I say the word Buddhist master. When I say the word Buddhist master, I want you to just let your mind free associate, come up with an image. I'll share with you the image that the internet gave me this morning when I did this. And so just free associate for a moment. Buddhist master, what comes up to your mind when you hear Buddhist master? Okay, this is one of the images that came up this morning when I looked for that. Maybe type in the chat box, did you see something similar in your mind's eye when I said Buddhist master? Tell me what you came up with in your little free association. What kind of image came to your mind? Well, while those roll in, I'll let you know what came up for me on the internet, on the good old Google machine, was a lot of men. I typed in Buddhist master. I wanted to do this experiment, and there were a lot of men, and they all had shaved heads, and they were either wearing yellow or red. Right, Rob? You got it. You nailed it, Rob. A bunch of men wearing red or yellow. So, ooh, a samurai warrior. That sounds pretty fun. Yeah, the orange robes. I bet very few of you thought Buddhist master and you thought of a mom who changed her clothes every day and got her hair cut on occasion. Did anybody think of a mom who changed her clothes, clean clothes every day, and there she is, she's momming as a Buddhist master? Very interesting. So this type of exercise can help point us to the patriarchal overlay that I personally believe Buddhism has the best of intentions, but like all of our great world religions, it has grown up through male-dominated and literally misogynistic structures that we cannot help but have an overlay of misogyny and inequality in the way it appears inside our minds. Yeah, motherhood, right? Selflessness and compassion. Like, what better candidate for Buddhist mastery than moms? My goodness, my goodness. So let me find my notes here. What am I supposed to say to you? So I propose to you, so we're going to talk a little bit about contrasting gender essentialism, which says like these qualities are part of this gender, versus cultural gender associations. So I propose to you that while wearing the same clothes every day, shaving your head, and striving desperately toward freedom and great aloofness, while these are not essential elements of masculinity, they are cultural stereotypes of masculinity. And these are the things that are prized as spiritual in not only Buddhism, but many of our world's traditions. Okay, what would it be like if we thought of Buddhist master, and instead of looking at how free are they, how bald is their head, how aloof are they, we thought, how much do they care? What if we thought Buddhist master, and we immediately thought of these mastery qualities happening through a woman's body? What if we thought of Buddhist master, and we immediately thought maybe they could wear different outfits every day? These also are not essentially feminine qualities, quote unquote feminine, please don't get me wrong there, but they are culturally associated feminine qualities that have been denigrated in Buddhism as well as other patriarchal forms of spiritual practice. So really kind of interesting to play with these ideas. So the cool thing is once you get into the yoga tradition, the Siddha tradition, the masters of yoga, we see examples of enlightenment. Remember, in early Buddhism, the examples of enlightenment were you get the wish to become enlightened, and then you get reborn as a man, and then you can take care of it through a succession of male births. Then in the Mahayana, we have this sense, this theory, we're all the same on the inside. But it comes out kind of like when people say, I don't see color, which means I don't pay attention to the racism that's right under my nose. Or when people say, all lives matter, because institutional monastic misogyny was still in play for all of the lip service to inherent worth and dignity that they said. In the Siddha tradition, we get new examples. What does enlightenment look like when it happens to parents? What does it look like when it happens through the vehicle of parenthood as the practice of enlightenment? We get examples of what does it look like when it happens when your vehicle to enlightenment is being a king. One of my favorite siddhas is a guy who loved dogs. Okay, we're going to talk about a male Siddha for just a minute because he's my favorite, and it's a great example of diversity. So he went to the cave, did the classic thing, attained mastery, and then the gods, he was so fragrant with his mastery, the gods came down and they're like, hey, come up to our heaven, bro. We're having a party. And he was like, oh, I made it. Party in heaven? Dude, this is going to be awesome. And they fed him ambrosia or whatever. That's Greek, but, whatever the Sanskrit word for ambrosia is. And, the dancing folks they were so sexy with their fishnet shirts and stuff. Oh, they're dancing. It was really great. But all the time while he was practicing in the cave, he had a rescue dog before he went into retreat. And this rescue dog, when he would go out and look for food, would guard the cave. And then they probably cuddled for body heat at night. And he's up in heaven and he keeps thinking, gosh, I hope my rescue dog is okay. And he finally, after, I don't know, those dancing people and ambrosia were probably a pretty powerful combo. So it took him a minute, but they said like, hey, do you want to stay here forever? And he goes, no, I've got a rescue dog at home in the cave. I've got to get back to planet Earth. And this, according to his story, was the moment where he finished off his practice of realization. His compassion arose for his rescue dog. And that, rather than dancing with ambrosia and the best fishnet shirts money can buy from Fredericks of Hollywood or whatever, that moment of care was the moment that enlightenment was achieved. There are other siddhas, such as twin sisters whose betrothal didn't work out, and so they met a guru instead, lived in the forest by themselves, attained enlightenment, came back, told the guru he didn't recognize them. They demonstrated their enlightenment, stupefied the guru, flipping the script on its head, and that was the story of their mastery. There's a story about a siddha called Nirgunapa, the man with no good qualities. He met his guru, a wandering yogi, and the yogi said, come to town, let's go beg for some food. And Nirgunapa said, well, they never give me anything. I'm such a poor beggar. I don't even have the qualities to look pathetic and get food. This was his path of enlightenment, the enlightenment of being a pathetic person. Diversity, you guys. Manibhadra was a model wife and mother who practiced in secret until her kids were old enough to make it on their own, and then she transcended the world using her motherhood and wifelyhood as her practice. On the other hand, Lakshminkara was betrothed to a barbarian type ruler. On the day of their wedding, he came in all in his furs with a dead animal on his shoulders, and she was a Buddhist, and she said, ew, oh my gosh, I can't even handle this. So she went in her room, she smeared ash all over her body, she put her hair into dreadlocks, pretended to be crazy, and then snuck out and went and practiced in the cemetery for the rest of her life. And that was her path to enlightenment. Diversity is the name of the game in yoga. And the idea, what does this have to do with feminism? Well, I think like Buddhism can do so skillfully, it weaves us a path between equality feminism, that's kind of like the Mahayana that de-emphasizes gender differences, working toward equality, and difference feminism that emphasizes gender differences in those who find them. And what Buddhism does in this Siddha tradition is that it embraces diversity as sacred. We gain an opportunity to practice any type of feminine, masculine, non-binary, trans-binary, whatever label you want to put onto it, it could become your path to enlightenment. You like dogs, my friend? No problem. No, don't renounce your attachment to rescue dogs, your attachment. Get more attached to rescue dogs and use that as your path to enlightenment. You don't like your fiance? Put your hair in dreadlocks, find yourself a cemetery, and use that as your path to... There are actually more opportunities nowadays for women who don't like their fiance, but that was the main one back in the day. So whatever your path looks like, do you want to be the perfect mom and you've always dreamed, oh, I want to be the perfect mom, but gosh darn it, when will I practice my spirituality? False dichotomy, y'all. You've been colonialized, and we're about to decolonialize you today. So diversity is the name of the game. Any type of feminine expression. It's not gender essentialist feminism. Oh, we can have feminine in the Buddhism as long as it looks pretty or like a grandmother. No, we can have anything that you want to call feminism as long as it has the heart of basic goodness and intrinsic kindness at its root. It's your path of awakening. Woo! Okay. Let's see, we can work for freedom and care in a way that most deeply suits our personal expression, not compressing that down into an acceptable cultural form. I believe we can use elements of Buddhist feminism as a case study in how to create a world that honors diversity and welcomes difference with equal opportunity for all. It starts, I believe, by recognizing the repressive structures already in place. Any feminine awakening that ignores millennia of misogyny is just spiritual bypassing. It's just willful ignorance and not blissful ignorance. But once we've gotten ourselves square with that, we can begin to realize that Mahayana recognition of the innate essence of our inherent worth and dignity, which transcends the differences that divide us. It is the sameness in each one of us, our living human heart. Finally, that essential heart of our being will express itself in unique and divine ways. The work of recognizing and expressing our own deeply human heart will take on a form unlike any other. Bedecked in jewels or in ashes, model wife and mother, or beggar with no good qualities, all can be ways of awakened being. What does this lead us to? The feminine in many cultures has been relegated to the roles of doting grandmother or lustful temptress. But the yoginis of Tantric Buddhism smash this oppressive dichotomy. These are women who sacrificed everything to come to know their heart more fully and transgressed every social norm to be able to share that heart with others. I believe that we are each called, perhaps in this age more than ever, to learn from these powerful women who faced greater barriers to their practice than their male counterparts did. Can we take up that same kind of courage, to see the obstacles to the awakened heart in our world and do everything in our power to realize it in ourselves and go on to create a culture of mutual care? I believe with such inspiration we can. And so today, let us call upon the awakened yoginis to guide us through the power of displaying our underlying unity in undeniable dignity through their women's bodies. May they teach us to overthrow the structures of repression and division that have so long kept us from realizing true freedom together. This, my friends, is a glimpse of Buddhist feminism. I hope that the yoginis have taken root in your heart and tickled you into wakefulness. Let's hear our final benediction, and then we'll go on and smash some patriarchies together.